Hello Raptors fans, welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be discussing the Toronto Raptors 138-133 loss to the Charlotte Hornets in their building. It was a fun up and down game. There were a lot of standout performances on the Raptors. Grady Dick set his career high again. Barrett had a big evening on the offensive side of the ball. Jakob Poeltl continues to impress. There are a bunch of different storylines that we will be getting into. But before we get to the game, I'm going to do a little segment that I'm going to call Crackpot Corner. And this segment, I might do it a couple of times on the show, but the idea is that this is something that I can't prove, but I think is an interesting theory, and maybe it will give you a little insight into the nefarious deeds that the Toronto Raptors front office is up to. But this is for Toronto Raptors fans' ears only. So I want you to reply with a little shush emoji in the chat if you're going to keep your lips sealed and not tell any other fans about this. Okay, are you guys ready? When you look at advanced statistics, some of the most popular advanced statistics are plus-minus based. And what that means is that you look at how a team performs when a player is on the floor versus how the team performs when a player is off the floor. And the reason that you do that, so you can tell how good a player is in relation to the other players that they play with. And it's useful because raw plus-minus is misleading. And the reason for that is because really, really good teams, even the worst players on really, really good teams, the rising tide will float their boat and they will have a higher plus minus just based on the fact that they're playing on a good team. Ditto for players that play a lot of minutes on bad teams. Maybe they're very good, but they're being dragged down by their coworkers. Essentially where I'm going with this is one thing that I noticed after last game. There was a tweet made by the wonderful stat lady Kirthika on Twitter. I'll put her Twitter handle in the description. You should follow her if you're a Raptors fan. But she posted was that the Toronto Raptors have a 119 offensive rating while Jakob Poeltl is on the floor and a 93 offensive rating when he is off the floor. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And I don't want this to be misconstrued as a Jakob Poeltl hate video, because it's not. I respect Jakob Poeltl. I think he's a good player. But I think that there might be a little mischief going on with the Raptors front office. And I want you guys to keep this quiet. But I think I figured out why Bruno Fernando is on the team. And I can't prove this, obviously, and there might be other reasons for it. All of his advanced stats said that he's not a good player. So why is he on the Raptors? The Raptors are a rebuilding team. He is a veteran. They're playing him pretty substantial minutes. Could it be that the Toronto Raptors are purposefully giving minutes and rostering Bruno Fernando because his plus-minus and his impact on the court has been very detrimental to the Toronto Raptors? And in comparison with Jakob Poeltl, it makes him look a lot better. They obviously do not share floor time. They're both centers. You wouldn't want to do it even if they could. Jakob Poeltl, who is one of the older veterans on the team, probably the Toronto Raptors' best trading chip, somebody that will probably be garnering interest around the league from other contending teams who need a center, like perhaps the Lakers or the Pelicans or some other team that really wants a vet center that could help drag them a little bit forward. Perhaps this is the Toronto Raptors' way of juicing Jakob Poeltl's on-off splits and therefore his advanced statistics to make him a lot more attractive to other teams. And if you don't believe me, look at last evening. Bruno Fernando played a grand total of 3 minutes, and he was -10 in those minutes. Hey, who knows? Remember, don't go around telling everybody this. If the league finds out, they're not going to trade for Jakob Poeltl. Listen, I think Jakob Poeltl is a good player. He is a solid pro. He is a starting caliber center, could probably start for a lot of contending teams and make their team a lot better. So please don't misconstrue this as a Jakob Poeltl hate video. I think he's a good player. As for the game itself, let's talk about that. It was a very fun game, very back and forth, 138-133. That's a very high score, and lots of fast breaks. Neither team was playing very much defense. The Raptors turned the ball over. They let guys get free and score. Trey Mann had an excellent game. Nick Richards, their center, had a really fantastic performance. It was really fun, and it didn't go in the Raptors' direction. I think that the Toronto Raptors are very depleted. They're playing another team in their building. The Hornets were missing some players as well, though. Mark Williams wasn't playing. Brandon Miller was not playing. They had some notable absences. And we obviously got the news that Scotty Barnes will be out for at least 3 weeks with a fractured orbital bone. Really sad news. The Raptors were in it until the very end of the game, but the Hornets got hot from 3. And the Raptors' curse with the Martin twins has continued. Cody Martin had a big game off of the bench. Trey Mann had a big game off of the bench. Both of those guys roasted the Raptors from 3 and from inside. They were kind of carving up the Toronto Raptors defense. And there were a couple of culprits for that, which I will get into. And you may not like what you hear, because these two players were kind of the stars of the show for the Toronto Raptors. So let's get into the player evaluations. We'll start right off the bat with Grady Dick, who had another great evening on the offensive end. He set his career high yet again with a 30-point performance on 11 of 17 shooting. He was 2 of 6 from 3 with only 2 rebounds, 1 assist, but 3 steals and 3 turnovers. I thought Grady Dick really had it going. He is making huge strides on the offensive side of the ball. He looks so confident, especially when it comes to attacking closeouts. He has been excellent when a player is closing out to him a little too hard. He gets into the paint consistently. He has a really good ball fake where he can get past his defender, get into the paint, and do one of 2 things. The first is drive to the rim and use his athleticism and creativity to finish. He had a fantastic fast break dunk where he rocked the rim. It kind of made me jump up, sit up in my chair. And then he has very creative finishes. On one play, he drove to the rim. I believe it was in transition, and he finished on the left side of the basket with his right hand. It was a scoop finish, beautiful looking finish, very creative finishing by Grady Dick. That's one of his strengths. And the other big strength, and it is becoming kind of something that I think he should really exploit if he is going to be this kind of shooter from the mid-range. And he takes a couple every game. These things are cash money. It seems like when he pulls up right in that 10 to 15 foot area, he doesn't go all the way and just strokes it, it goes in. I am super impressed with that area of his game. I think that could make him, I think they should run plays just getting him more of that shot. He is feasting, maybe kind of running him off of a screen and popping out to the elbow or along the baseline. More of those types of plays where he can get free and shoot that deadly mid-range shot. I don't know if that's an aberration. It's not a long 2. It is right in that mid-range area, sort of the DeRozan zone, where it's like 10 to 15 feet. It's close enough to the basket where there's not a huge amount of variance. And it is deadly because the center doesn't want to come out all the way out from under the basket because they want to be in rebounding position. They want to protect the rim. It will add another layer. If he consistently is hitting that mid-range shot, it's going to get into the scouting report, and centers and help defenders are going to have to come out and meet him in that mid-range area. And if they do that, he'll be more free to continue driving to the rim and use his creativity and bounce to score around the rim. Unfortunately, he was a culprit on defense. And it is a shame because he had such a wonderful shooting evening. He continues to make strides on offense. Grady Dick's defense is still very much a work in progress, and he needs to get much better on that end because players are blowing past him, and he really just does not have the lateral foot speed to be able to stay attached to players who are driving to the rim. It is a problem. And when he's on the floor, teams are looking to attack him. They're putting the ball into the hands of the player he's guarding and taking it at him, either through a screen and roll, putting him into that type of coverage, or into isolation coverage. And he just hasn't looked very good there. So I think that his defense will probably improve. He's still young, but he needs to make strides in that area. And if he could get to average, or maybe even slightly below average, this guy has star potential. This guy could be a star in the NBA. And so I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing from Grady Dick, but I thought I'd mention the defensive side of the ball as well, just to give a balanced approach. Next up, we'll talk about RJ Barrett, because RJ Barrett had a strange game. He started the game missing every one of his shots. I think he was 0 for 6 or 0 for 5, just missed almost everything. But then he went on an extended run. He was hitting threes, he was making layups, he was passing the ball. He was making good decisions with the ball. He hit back-to-back three-pointers in the fourth quarter to bring the Raptors back into the game. And it was kind of validating his decision to use the pull-up jump shot at the end of the Denver Nuggets game to try and win it, because he showed that he can make that type of shot, and it's not a bad shot for him. So that was encouraging. There are a couple of downsides. Obviously, the start wasn't very good, and the shooting at the free throw line was not good. He went 7 for 12 from the free throw line, so his struggles from last season seem to be catching back up to him. Of course, he did not shoot the ball well at the free throw line last year, ever since joining the Toronto Raptors, which is very bizarre because the rest of his game kind of took off and started flourishing, except for that element of his game. He missed a lot of free throws down the stretch. And then lastly, we got to talk about the defense, because again, him and Grady Dick were the two biggest culprits on defense. RJ Barrett has a tendency to lose track of his man. He kind of ball watches, he tries to provide help on drives and whatnot, but he completely loses track of where his man is, and they'll back cut him, they'll catch the ball and he'll be way out of position, they'll drive to the rim, and then it puts the Toronto Raptors help defense into rotation, the swing, and then their opponents are shooting open jump shots, and that happened a whole bunch last night. And RJ Barrett has mentioned that he wants to be known as a defensive player, he wants to be a shutdown defender. And the thing is that I don't think that his man-to-man defense is that bad. I think that he can stay in front of guys, and he's pretty physical and rugged, and he can put up resistance when he is locked in and the player he's defending has the ball. But as soon as the player he's supposed to be guarding doesn't have the ball, it's like when a baby, object permanence, you take the thing they're fascinated with and you move it out of their frame of vision for a second. It's like the thing never existed. RJ is a very intelligent player on the offensive side of the ball. He always makes the right play on that side of the ball. I want to see that kind of intelligence on the defensive side of the ball, because I know he can think the game. I'm pleased with the way he plays. I think that he makes the right decision a lot of the time on offense. Even when he doesn't have the ball, I think he's moving and cutting and doing all that kind of stuff. On defense, though, he needs to somehow get better at figuring out how to play help defense, and because right now it is costing the Toronto Raptors points. And it's hard to give him an A+ grade, because he had a really good scoring night. He scored 31 points on 18 shots. He's 10 for 18 from the field and 4 for 6 from 3. He had 8 assists. My gosh, he had a really good game outside of the two factors that I mentioned, the free throws and the defense. So I want to see him pick it up on that end. Next up, we've got Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl has continued to play great basketball. 20 points, 16 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 10 for 14 from the field, playing bully ball, getting deep seals in the post, making himself available for passes. Him and Davion Mitchell actually had a really good two-man thing going on. Davion Mitchell would get him the ball deep in the post, and then Jakob Poeltl would convert it. It was kind of an assist machine for Davion Mitchell, and he still plays good defense. I think one of the problems with the team is that he is being tasked with putting out the fires, and the perimeter defenders, so Grady Dick and RJ Barrett, for example, are creating a lot of the fires that he has to put out, and it's a little bit too much for him. He'll maybe be out of position on his own man. I think that was one of the reasons the Hornets center Richards was able to get a whole bunch of points, is because Poeltl would have to come over, leave Richards open, and provide help defense, and then it's an easy pass to his man, and he'd get a layup. So yeah, Poeltl has been playing great basketball for the Raptors this season. He does the same thing almost every game, and his turnovers have gone down. He only had 1 turnover last night on 2 assists, so the one element of his game that I had a criticism with, he has seemed to shore up. Continually impressed by Jakob Poeltl. Jonathan Mobo started, and he had 11 points. It was his first start of his career. 11 points and 5 of 7 shooting, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks. He is a stat stuffer. He really looks like a guy who could be a defensive stalwart for the Toronto Raptors. He plays a smart brand of basketball. He is always trying to move his feet, make plays around the basket. He's moving off the ball on offense. He's getting to the rim. He's dunking it, finishing strong. That was a problem that I noticed with him in preseason, was that he was not finishing very well. That has changed. The guys are finding the level for him on his lobs. He's finishing lobs. He's getting out in transition. I really love the energy from him, and that's kind of what he is. He is an energy player, and there was some confusion for me a little earlier because he looked a little wing-like. He has some wing elements to his game, but he hasn't really shot any threes since the beginning of this season. He had no attempts last night, and I think that he is starting to look to me, it's starting to crystallize a little bit, that he is an energy big. And playing him next to Jakob Poeltl, it's not an ideal fit because then you lose some spacing. Neither guy can shoot the three. I think that right now his main role should be as the bench big for the Toronto Raptors, but I'm enjoying what I see. I think that he has a bright future in the NBA. I'm happy that he's on the Toronto Raptors. I'm pleased with the pick. Very happy to see Jonathan Mogbo continue to grow. Next up, Davion Mitchell. I think he had a pretty good game. He made it kind of difficult for LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball finished with 19 points on 20 shots, so that's not very efficient. And then on offense, Davion Mitchell and Jakob Poeltl had a really good flow going. I've been kind of heaping on Davion Mitchell. He isn't the greatest creator. He's not a guy that's going to go out and score a ton of points for the Raptors, but he has been doing a solid job as a role player. I think he's outperformed my expectations for him this season. Not by a whole lot. I'm not saying he's blowing the doors off or anything like that, but he's turning in decent performances. 11 points, 11 assists, only 2 turnovers on 5 of 11 shooting. The big downside is that you can see there is that he was 0 for 5 from 3. And I think that once you have him trying to generate threes off of the dribble, that's where you're going to run into trouble. He's not very good at that. So yeah, decent performance by him. It's not always pretty, but he has been getting the job done for the most part. Chris Boucher had a good game. I feel like Chris Boucher really excels when he gets to play against teams that don't have those big burly centers that give him problems, that can push him out of the paint and put some wood on him, make it hard for him to finish inside. And Charlotte doesn't really have that in the absence of Mark Williams, who kind of matches that description. So he was able to get inside and finish around the rim. He had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, a block, only 1 turnover in 17 minutes. He was 6 for 10 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, so he hit his first 3 in a long time. He continues to take the shot. I don't hate it. I know that it frustrates some people. He's very hot and cold when it comes to threes, but with the way that the team is, they need a guy on the bench who can hit 3-point shots and has the willingness to take it, and I will accept it. I think that he played a good game last night. Bruno Fernando, I've already mentioned him. 3 minutes, 1 rebound, 1 foul, -10. Not a very good performance from him. Jamison Battle, he had probably his worst game of the season. He was 0 for 2, -19 in 12 minutes. He hasn't hit a 3 in 2 games now, and that's kind of his role. Specialists, when they're performing the role that they're supposed to be doing, look good. And when they don't, they look bad. That's kind of how specialists work. The job that they're being asked to do is stand on the floor, in his case, hit threes. And if he's not doing that, the rest of his game is okay. I think he plays smart and he's big and can get rebounds. But if he's not hitting the 3, that's kind of the main reason he's on the team. So can't give him very good marks for this game. Jamal Shed, I think, had his worst defensive game of the season, and I think he did have there were some high points for him, but Trey Mann has kind of been a revelation for the Hornets this season. He's been very good, and he outsized and kind of outplayed Jamal Shed a number of times last night. It was a tough matchup for Jamal Shed. He was a little undersized for that. Trey is very good off of the dribble. He hit a bunch of pull-up shots. He shot over Shed a number of times. He got to the rim. He really had it going. Toward the end of the game, Shed did have a number of nice possessions where he stole the ball or caused a turnover, and there were a couple of, he had a steal, passed it to Grady Dick for a slam dunk. There were a bunch of highlights that I saw from him that were very nice, and he did have 9 assists with only 1 turnover, so I think he's doing a good job running the show. And again, he shot 50% from 3, 1 of 2 from 3, so his shot coming along is another encouraging sign, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from him, but I think that this was not maybe a shining example from him. He's played better. I mean, I'm judging him to a higher standard. If a rookie that was not showing very much gave this type of performance, I would probably give it a higher grade. But based on what I've seen from Shed, I think he can play better than this, especially on the defensive end. But I will give him passing marks for last night. I think he played well. He's an exciting player, and I'm glad he's on the Toronto Raptors. And last of all, we'll go with Ochai Agbaji, who played 29 minutes, so he is kind of playing starter minutes anyway, even though he's coming off of the bench. And the reason for that is because he's so good and versatile on the defensive end. He is the best wing stopper on the Toronto Raptors right now. He had 10 points on 3 of 6 shooting. He was 1 for 3 from 3. He had a pretty nasty block in this game. I've really been enjoying his performances. This game wasn't as good as the game previous, but he continues to put in solid efforts game after game after game. And that's what you want to see from a role player, is that you want to see that consistency. You want to see that player being able to match up with the top perimeter players on the other team, make it difficult for those players, and then also chip in on the offensive end. I feel like he is a very heady player on both ends of the floor, and he has been getting downhill a lot more this season. That is an area of his game that he didn't really show me his first couple of years in the league, and also especially last year where he looked very invisible. It seems as though his role has changed a little bit, and he is being given a couple more on-ball reps where he can put the ball on the floor, and it's looked pleasant. It does not look out of control. I know we've seen guys like OG Anunoby, who's a great player, don't get me wrong, but his ability to drive, it always looks stilted, off balance, clumsy, and very sort of forward, like almost like a big handling the ball. Ochai Agbaji, his handle looks pretty good, and you don't have to be elite with the ball. And then on offense, you're not going to be one-dimensional. You're not going to be the guy who only stands in the corner and shoots threes. Those types of guys are very easy to cover. And I feel like he is adding little pieces to his game that make him more of a complete player. Last night was no exception. I don't think it was his best night of the season by any stretch of the imagination, but he continues to show me little pieces of his game, and he looks like a guy who could be a very, very good role player. One of those players that is not a star, but a well-rounded player that can do a lot of things that every team would love to have. Very pleased with the way he's played this season. I've been saying that every game, and it's true. We'll just give a little breakdown on the game. The Toronto Raptors are 1-4. They've lost Scotty Barnes. They're kind of playing for ping pong balls right now. Cooper Flagg is very much in the crosshairs. They've had a brutal schedule to start the season. The only respite for them was that game against the 76ers, who were very depleted, missing their top 2 players. So this is tough, and it's not going to get much easier. The Raptors play the Lakers tomorrow at 7:30, and while it's in the Raptors building, the Lakers have come out to a pretty good start. Anthony Davis is a little banged up, but he said that he will be playing against the Raptors, and he has been elite this season. He's been very good. LeBron is having probably one of the worst starts to his career ever, so Father Time appears to be kind of creeping up on him. But as we've all seen, he's tortured the Raptors in the past, and he might get a second wind playing against them. I'm sure he loves seeing Toronto Raptors jerseys, unfortunately. Austin Reeves has played very well for them. They're a good team. I don't know if the Raptors will have what it takes to beat the Lakers, even though they're at home. With Scotty Barnes in the lineup, I'd say they'd have a fighting chance. Without him, it's probably more of the same. I want an exciting game. I want them to try hard. I want them to do what they've been doing almost every game this season, which is put in an entertaining game, show growth from the young players, and then the results will be the results. If they lose the game, oh well. If they win, hooray. I'm not going to say that the Raptors are going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and beat the Lakers, but I will be watching the game. I have been happy. Watching the games this season has been much different than watching the games last season. Last season, the Raptors were bit by the injury bug, yes, same as this season, but the games were putrid. They were horrible to watch. Raptors were getting blown out in every contest. The young players and the players on 10 days and all of those types of players weren't very good. This season, with Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mogbo, Jamison Battle, although he has to pick it up, there are some guys, Ochai Agbaji, Grady Dick. There are a lot of really fun performances and growth that we can watch. And I can't complain too hard about the Toronto Raptors and what I've been able to watch this season. Yep, that's the video. I hope you were able to take something away from it. Why don't you let me know what your thoughts were on the Toronto Raptors' loss to the Charlotte Hornets, what you think maybe about Scotty Barnes' injury, what do you think about Jakob Poeltl and the theory that I told you guys about. Let me know what you think here in the comments and also on Twitter, where you can reach me at Raps Report. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.